Hello, Fish Faithful. This is Marlins Daily on the Fan Arch Network. I am Kurt Semder as we wrap up another week here of Marlins baseball, a week that, if you've been following the show and following the team, has been a week to forget, to say the least. 9 straight losses heading into tonight when the Marlins will take on the San Diego Padres and start a home stretch that is very, very important and very crucial to their season. And the reason for that is that we've talked about it here on the show. The trade deadline is coming up right around the corner here in a matter of weeks. And this losing streak couldn't have come at a worse time for a team that was really seemed to be going in the right direction, seemed to be looking at contending for a playoff spot. And the front office had made it known that they were planning on, going forward and making additions where it made sense, and probably weren't going to take on a ton of salary or anything like that, but they were going to make moves to improve this team with the intention of making a playoff run this year. And this 9-game losing streak has really put a lot of that in flux. And the questions now about what this team are going to do with the deadline really boils down to, are they going to go for it or not? And with the losing streak the way it is and the way the standings have broken down right now, I would gather that more likely than not, they're going to go in the other direction, in the sense of I don't expect them to make any big additions unless something changes in a big way over the next week. So I thought today we would take a quick look at the deadline and kind of what the Marlins might do or could do if they were to decide to go the seller route. And if they were to decide to break this team down a little bit and improve for the future. And I want to preface this by saying that when I say they are going to try to improve for the future, I'm not talking about building up the farm system again. I'm not talking about getting this team to be good and competitive 3-4 years from now. I'm talking about making moves that's going to put this team in a position to contend as soon as next year. And when you talk about the Marlins and you talk about the trade deadline, you have to start with the name that comes up the most, and that is their starting pitcher, one of, if not the face of the franchise, and that is Sandy Alcantara. And he has just been really, really good this year for the team. Slow start, but has rebounded nicely. And you look at the numbers that he's put up so far this year, he's 10-6, got 110 strikeouts, 143 innings pitched. That's the most in baseball. So he has shown he is durable once again. So we love seeing all of that. But he at the same time is somebody who could bring you back the most in return. And in a market right now that, if you look around baseball, doesn't have a lot of big starting pitchers in it at the moment, and there are teams out there that are looking for starting pitching, the Marlins really could do well for their future if they were to move on from Sandy and trade him. I'm not saying they should trade him. In fact, I don't even think they have to trade him. But if they get an offer that is absolutely blows them away, then you know what? Yeah, maybe then they have to do it. And maybe then they have to make that decision and do something like that. And for this team, when we talk about a blowaway offer, we're talking about, 2 big prospects. We're talking about a major league ready player, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know if you're going to get like a Chris Sale type package, like when he got traded away, but you want to get something really, really good. And, maybe it's time for Peter Bendix to take phone calls, to put it out there and see what he can get back. There are teams out there like the Cubs, like the Dodgers, who could use another pitcher and could use someone like Sandy, and maybe they'd be willing to overpay to get him. But when you go into the trade deadline like this, I think it's just as important that you see what the market is offering, as opposed to, in addition to what will help your team in the future. And right now, having a starting pitcher like Sandy and being able to trade him may be beneficial for the team. Now, again, I don't think they have to trade him. He's got a $21 million club option for next season. Depending on how the lockout plays out or how this collective bargaining agreement works out, the Marlins may actually need to have a player like Sandy on the roster to try to get to a salary floor. $21 million next year for a pitcher of his quality is not terrible by any means. And again, he is somebody who the fans love, who the owner loves. He's been with the team since 2018. You'd love to keep him around for whatever's coming up next, but I think that they at least owe it to the franchise and to the fans to listen on offers about Sandy Alcantara and see if they can get something back that's going to really help them as soon as next year. And again, when you look at the market the way it is right now, as we sit here today, there's only a couple of teams who have really said they're going to be blowing it up and moving guys. You look at names like, Freddie Peralta from the Mets, or Robbie Ray from the Giants, or, Clay Holmes, also Mets. These are the kind of guys who right now might be available. And Sandy's better than all of them, or at least pitching better than them this season. Now, if the Tigers throw Tariq Skubal on the market, that changes a lot. But you understand what I'm saying here. It's advantageous right now for the Marlins to think about maybe trading their ace starting pitcher. And going into next year, if they don't have him and they make this deal, you're going to have Max Meyer. You're going to have Yuri Perez. You're going to have the young arms that they've got that have hit some injuries this year on the way up. Braxton Garrett has struggled, but perhaps he can turn things around here in the second half, and maybe he can make his way to the big league club and contribute next year. You never know what exactly can happen, who you can get back for a Sandy Alcantara. Maybe there's a pitcher in there that can help you next year as well. But he's the guy that it all starts with him, and he's probably the biggest name that they have that they can move. If I was the front office, if I don't get that big offer, I'm not trading him. If I don't get, at least, like I said, a top 20 prospect in baseball, maybe two of your top prospects, preferably another major league ready player, that's who I'm looking for, especially with the market the way it is and with the starting pitching in as demand as it is right now. So you're looking for a big offer, and you're looking for a team to come in and blow you away if you're the Marlins looking to trade your ace pitcher. So that would be the first big piece that I'd be looking to move. Now, when you talk about the Marlins also in the trade deadline, the other part that's come up is their bullpen. And there's a reason for that, because the Marlins have a lot of very good, controllable young arms in the bullpen who have pitched well this year, and they can help out some of these contending teams. Three guys really come to mind immediately when you look at contracts and you look at what's going on here. Anthony Bender, John King, and Calvin Fauché are all arbitration eligible in the offseason. They're going to need to be paid a little bit more, especially Bender and King, considering the seasons that they've had. Whether or not the Marlins want to pay them next year, or whether or not they want to try to get a new deal done before going to arbitration, is something that would have to be watched and seen. But these are three guys in 30, 31, 32 years old. Bender and Fauché both righties, King a lefty, which makes him infinitely more valuable to teams. But Bender and King have been really pitching well this season. ERA's under 3, averaging more than a strikeout an inning. King is 30 strikeouts in 40 innings, but Bender's over a strikeout an inning. And unfortunately for both of those guys, they're both hurt, but they are on the way back. They're not expected to be out much longer. So whether they get back before the deadline or not, they're guys that you can trade at the deadline, because teams will be interested in acquiring them because they think they'll be able to help them down the stretch run. The other guy there, Pete Fairbanks, your closer, free agent after this season, hasn't been great, but a team would take a flyer on him. And a team might be willing to give you a mid-level prospect type thing for him, maybe even a little bit higher if they are thinking about putting him towards the back end of their bullpen. And these are the bullpen arms that Miami might want to consider moving if they decide to start looking forward to next year. You'd like to have guys like Bender and King in your bullpen next year, sure. But again, you got to trade something to get something, and these guys could bring back some pieces that can help you in other spots. And again, they're not expensive. Not a single one of them is due anything on the books as of right now for next year. So these are guys you not necessarily guaranteed are going to even be here next year. So Miami can look at least those 4 arms, if not more, out of the bullpen who may be attractive to other teams, and they might be able to get something back for it. And again, this is all about getting players that can help you starting next season. Like I said, we're talking about major league ready talent. Don't start trading these guys for people in, high A ball or single A, double A at worst. And even then I want somebody who's about to be called up to triple A. Like, get guys who are going to help this team soon, because the major league ready talent that they have on the roster right now is good and they're ready. They just need some help in some key areas to take them over to the next level. We've seen what they can do when they rattled off those wins in June. We're just not seeing it right now, so it's kind of hard to remember what this team is actually capable of. So that's where Miami might want to look to see where they go and try to make some moves ahead of the deadline or as the deadline approaches. And then we talked a lot about pitching, and I was trying to think of like who else on this team could the Marlins technically kind of trade and they would still be okay. And I started looking around the roster, and listen, I'm not saying they should trade him. In fact, I don't think they should trade him. However, Liam Hicks is definitely somebody who would be attractive to a lot of other teams out there, and you could probably get something really good for him if the Marlins decided to move him at the deadline. Just 27 years old, really has taken a big step forward this year, even with an injury that cost him about 2 weeks of the season. He's hitting .285, 14 home runs, 60 RBI. This guy can catch, he can play first base, DH, and he is not arbitration eligible until 2028. So he's not going to cost a team much going forward. So he is a perfect candidate for the Marlins to keep on their team. But if I'm looking at guys on the roster who the Marlins could get away with trading for other parts or guys to play other positions or fill other needs that they have, well, Joe Mack looks like he might be your catcher of the future the way he's going right now. He could be your guy. Agustin Ramirez is still right there behind him as a backup, or maybe he takes over the role and finds his swing. First base, you'd like to put Hicks back over there. I mean, Kyle Stowers has done a more than serviceable job, but you'd probably like to get him back into the outfield if possible. But, my point is you've got somebody there right now. And as far as the most valuable piece to bring you back somebody, you don't want to move Otto Lopez right now. Xavier Edwards, not going to happen. This is your guy right now. I think that if you wanted to really shake things up and make a big splash as far as a trade, someone would give you something big for him, especially considering the fact that he can catch and play first base and give you power. But I wouldn't. And to sum it all up for the Marlins, what I would do at the deadline, sitting here as I am right now today, I'd trade the bullpen arms. I'd keep Sandy unless I got the big offer, and that would be about it. I really wouldn't look to do much else. I wouldn't mortgage any of the future to kind of fill in some gaps unless you got the right offer, but I wouldn't do that either. I think right now, unless they show you something this weekend and leading up to the trade deadline that makes you think differently, they're not only 2 or 3 pieces away. And especially with the injuries that they've had, Otto missing time and the injuries to the bullpen, and Max Meyer now seeing a neck specialist to see what's going on with him, the injuries are starting to mount. And when that happens, you start to get worried and you start to get concerned. And I think for Peter Bendix, he's got to be really, really careful about what he wants to do. And I think he really needs to continue to look at things in the big picture. He needs to continue to look at things, as they say, from like 20,000 feet high away. He's got to continue to just look ahead and make sure that this team is continuing to go on the right track and not mortgage the future for a chance at a third wild card. Because if that's all they're going for, then maybe they need to do something else. And maybe they need to approach this a little bit differently. And what's going to happen with the trade deadline and with the Marlins is going to begin tonight. They return home, Miami here, to Lone Depot Park. 3 games with the Padres, 3 games with the Phillies, I think 4 games with the Mets. And you're looking at a team that's coming off of a 9-game losing streak. They need to stop the losing streak as quickly as possible, obviously. Might be difficult here in the first game. Offense is going to have to get it done because it sounds like we're going to have a bullpen game type of situation here tonight. Yuri Perez and Jensen Junk are going to take it the rest of the way over the weekend. And the Padres are a team that are right there with them in the wild card race. As we've mentioned, these are all games against contending teams for the most part. Got to win 2 or 3 from San Diego, and it would help to get the first one here tonight to just snap that losing streak. You don't want to go on a 10-game losing streak. 10-game losing streak, 9-game losing streak, man, it may not make a difference, but 10-game losing streak sounds worse. And this team needs to turn it around right now. And they need to turn it around and get off the snide and get back to winning the way they were winning in June. And that was with timely hitting, with really good pitching, great defense, and again, the bullpen being solid and bringing these games home. They got to just get that done. And if they want to contend and they want to be in the race and they want to go buy some pieces at the deadline or put themselves in a position where they think they could, this is how they get it done. This is how they get it done. You want to stay together as a team? Fine. Go win some games this weekend and then go beat the Phillies too. That's how you get it done if you're the Marlins right now. Otherwise, they've shown you nothing over the last 9 games that makes you think that they should buy at the deadline. And maybe they should consider moving some of their higher profile players and some of these guys who can bring them back a big return. So we'll continue to see what's going on here with the trade deadline. We're also going to obviously keep a big eye on what happens this weekend. We're going to have a lot to talk about on Monday coming off of this series, and we'll see what happens with the Marlins. Hopefully it's a good weekend for us. Hopefully it's a good weekend for the Fish faithful. And hopefully we're talking next week about guys that the Marlins can go out and get once again, and not talking about the possibility of breaking this team down for what seems like the umpteenth time. Anyway, that's going to be it for this week on our Marlins Daily. Thanks, everybody. Remember, like, subscribe, comment. Love seeing everything. And I will see you all next week.